Christmas Eve that year, I, Marco Rivera, 34 years old, an ordinary gas station attendant in Orlando, trudged home with feet as heavy as lead weights, spending the entire day standing behind the counter inhaling gasoline fumes. Forcing smiles at hurried customers left me so exhausted that I just wanted to collapse onto the sofa. Without even bothering to change out of my reeking uniform, our small house in the suburbs, a 2-bedroom apartment that Marisol and I had been given by her parents when we first got married, now seemed colder than ever. The Christmas atmosphere was everywhere, twinkling lights from the neighbors' houses, music echoing from car radios. But to me it was just a bitter reminder of the loneliness enveloping me. I had just kicked off my shoes and was about to pour myself a glass of water when the phone in my pocket vibrated. I thought it might be a holiday message from someone or perhaps Marisol calling to check in. But no, when I picked it up, the screen lit up with a live stream notification from social media. It was from Sonny Lang, my wife's brother, a 25-year-old kid who was always living online, constantly filming and snapping photos with his phone. Curiosity got the better of me, so I tapped in, and immediately my heart felt like it was being squeezed by an invisible hand. The frame that appeared before my eyes was a lavish, extravagant Christmas party, so opulent that I had to rub my eyes to make sure I wasn't dreaming. A long banquet table draped in pristine white cloth, laden with all sorts of dishes. Golden roasted turkey, fresh salads, aromatic puddings, and bottles of red wine sparkling under the lights. Christmas decorations hung everywhere, colorful LED light strands shimmering vibrantly, a towering Christmas tree adorned with glittering silver ornaments, and even fake snowflakes drifting down from the ceiling. Laughter mingled with the clinking of glasses, Christmas music blasting at full volume, resonating with cheerful melodies. This wasn't just any party. It was the Lang family's Christmas feast, my wife's family in their sprawling villa on the other side of the city. I slumped into the chair, eyes glued to the screen, feeling like the blood in my veins was freezing. Sonny panned the camera around, and then Marisol appeared crystal clear. My wife, a makeup artist who always groomed herself meticulously as if preparing for the stage, was beaming in a tight red dress, her wavy, glossy hair cascading over her shoulders. Her makeup so sharp that she looked like she'd just stepped out of a photo studio. She raised her glass with everyone, chatting and laughing boisterously, looking so happy that it stung me deeply. Marisol had always been a woman concerned with appearances, loving to show off. From posting photos on social media to the way she chose her clothes, everything had to be perfect to impress others. But in that moment, seeing her enjoying herself without me by her side, I was stunned into silence. My heart constricted as if stabbed by a sharp knife. The woman for whom I'd sacrificed everything, the one I loved so much that I'd give up anything, was now reveling in Christmas joy without a thought for me. I tried to take deep breaths, but the air in the room seemed heavier than ever. That's when I realized a harsh truth. All day today, my phone had been as silent as a rock. Not a single invitation, not a message, not a call from her family. This morning, I'd told myself they were probably busy preparing, or that Marisol would text in the afternoon. But no, from morning to night, my phone screen was filled only with lifeless ad notifications. A chill, colder than Florida's winter wind, seeped into my chest, spreading throughout my body. I'd been completely and utterly excluded from their celebration. What hurt the most, to the point where I wanted to scream, was that just a few months ago, when my wife's family's boutique, a chain of fashion stores they were so proud of, was on the verge of bankruptcy due to a debt of nearly $1 million, it was I who saved them. I used the entire $900,000 from my father's life insurance to help them settle the debt. I remembered that night clearly when Marisol cried and told me about her family's situation, her eyes red and swollen, her voice trembling. "Marco, my parents are about to lose everything. I can't bear it if they end up on the street." I'd held her, comforted her, and then decided to help her family pay off the debt. I didn't expect them to respect me or repay the favor. I didn't need that. I did it only because I didn't want Marisol to be heartbroken, didn't want to see the woman I loved shattered as her family teetered on the brink of collapse. But now, In what should have been a moment of family reunion, they were feasting lavishly, laughing and enjoying themselves without me, the one who'd sacrificed everything. I gripped the phone so tightly that my knuckles turned white, my hand trembling as if about to shatter. I pressed the call button for Marisol, my hand shaking. The ringtone went on, 1 ring, 2 rings, then silence. No one answered. My heart pounded wildly, cold sweat breaking out. I called again, clinging to a faint hope that she was just busy, that maybe the loud music drowned out the ring. But it was still just the endless beeping, dragging on like a mockery. In that instant, I realized the bitter truth. To my wife's family, to my wife herself, I was someone not worth remembering. An ordinary gas station worker, not wealthy, not influential. How could I be worthy of sitting at their table? A wave of heat rose from my neck to my chest, making me gasp for breath. I stood up abruptly, my heart feeling like it was about to explode. I couldn't sit still anymore. I knew I had to do something, confront them, demand answers, end this gnawing pain. I stepped out the door, grabbed my car keys, my mind spinning. I got in the car, started the engine, and sped straight to my wife's family's villa. My heart raced chaotically, a mix of anxiety and anger. What awaited me there? Would Marisol explain, or would things get worse? I didn't know, but I had to go. I had to end this pain tonight. The drive from my house to the Lang family villa in Orlando's upscale suburbs is normally about 20 miles, but tonight it felt endless. The car hurtled down the highway, headlights slicing through rows of pitch-black trees, the wind whistling past like mocking whispers. I remembered the first time I came to that villa 5 years ago when Marisol brought me to meet her parents. I was so nervous then, wearing the cheapest suit I owned, clutching a bouquet I'd grabbed from a roadside florist. The villa was enormous, lush gardens, a sparkling pool under the sun, a garage full of luxury cars. I thought I was the luckiest man alive to step into that world. But from the very first moment Mr. Emmett's gaze, my father-in-law, made my blood run cold. He looked me up and down, then asked, "What do you do for a living?" When I said I worked at a gas station, he just smirked, as if I'd told the lamest joke in the world. Mrs. Collette was more polite, but her tone dripped with sarcasm. "Oh, a stable job, how nice. Though certainly not what we had in mind for our daughter." Sonny, Marisol's younger brother, snickered behind their backs. Only Marisol defended me then, squeezing my hand tighter and saying, "He's wonderful, Mom and Dad." Now as my car sped toward the villa, I wondered if she even remembered those words. When I arrived, my heart was pounding harder than ever. The glow from the villa appeared from afar, blazing like a palace in the night. I parked on the curb, killed the engine, and took a deep breath. The cold wind slapped my face, carrying the mouth-watering smell of roasted food. I walked through the gate, my legs heavy as if dragging stones. The front door stood wide open, inviting, but the moment I stepped inside, the atmosphere shifted. About 30 people, friends, relatives, turned to stare at me for a split second, eyes wide with astonishment. Then, as if I were merely a passing shadow, they all turned back to their joy. The laughter resumed, the music blared on, and not a single person greeted me or asked how I was. I felt like an intruder. My greasy gas station uniform made me stand out grotesquely among the glittering gowns and elegant tuxedos. I pushed through the crowd, eyes scanning for Marisol. My heart hammered so hard my ears rang. She was standing in the corner of the living room near the buffet table, laughing with a group of girlfriends. The tight red dress hugged her curves perfectly, her glossy curls shimmering under the lights. When she turned and saw me, the smile vanished from her lips. Her eyes darted away instantly as if my presence irritated her, like a stain on her perfect picture. I walked straight to her, my voice trembling but trying to stay calm. "Marisol, why didn't you pick up the phone? Why didn't you tell me about this party?" She froze for a second, eyes blinking rapidly as if calculating her response. Then she forced a stiff, emotionless smile, the kind of fake smile I knew all too well. "Oh, you came? It's just a small family gathering. I thought you wouldn't like this kind of thing. You're always so busy with work." Her brazen excuse made my blood boil. A small gathering? With all these lavish decorations, music at full blast, and dozens of guests, I wouldn't like it? Who did she think I was? Someone who hated happiness. I clenched my fists, struggling to contain my rage. But I'm your husband, Marisol. Why wasn't I invited? I waited all day. At that moment, an irritated voice cut me off from behind. It was Mr. Emmett Lang, my 58-year-old father-in-law, owner of the fashion boutique chain, dressed in a sleek black suit, holding a glass of red wine. His face was flushed from alcohol, and he glared at me like I was an intruder. "What are you doing here, Marco? This is a family party, and this family has no place for you. You're ruining our evening." His words hit me like a slap, making me stagger. Family. Wasn't I family? I'd married his daughter. I'd been with her for nearly 5 years. Before I could respond, Mrs. Colette Lang, my 55-year-old mother-in-law, with her dyed blonde hair and gleaming pearl necklace, piled on like gasoline on a fire. She stepped beside her husband, voice ice-cold and cutting. "Who do you think you are, questioning my daughter?" With open contempt, she added, "You're nothing but a lowly gas station clerk, not fit to open your mouth here. Go home. Stop bothering us." Her words sliced through me like knives, blood rushing to my face. People around us started turning, pointing, whispering. "Who's that? Marisol's husband? He looks pathetic." They savored my humiliation like entertainment between courses, giggling and murmuring. The festive atmosphere had turned into a theater, and I was the unwilling clown. The rage inside me erupted like fire. I could no longer stay silent. My voice rose, shaking but resolute. "Have you all forgotten? Just a few months ago, your boutique chain was about to go bankrupt over a nearly $1 million debt. I gave you the entire $900,000 from my late father's life insurance, Esteban Rivera, who died 2 years ago, to save you. I didn't do it for gratitude. I did it for Marisol, because I couldn't bear to see her heartbroken." The living room fell dead silent. Every eye turned to us. Mr. Emmett let out a scornful laugh that echoed like thunder. "That was just a son-in-law's duty. Don't act like you're some great benefactor, Marco. We don't need your reminders." Mrs. Colette chimed in, dripping with sarcasm. "You should consider it an honor to have contributed to this family. Don't think that little bit of money makes you important." Their words were salt in an open wound, numbing me with pain. An honor? Duty? Did they think I was their servant? I had sacrificed the last inheritance from my father, the money he'd saved his whole life just to keep them from ruin. And now they treated it like it was nothing? I turned to Marisol, my eyes burning with anger and desperation. She was my last hope. "Marisol, say something. Just one word. Prove I still mean something to you." But Marisol stood frozen, cold as marble, lips sealed. Her eyes avoided mine, her mouth pressed into a thin line. I stared at her, waiting for even the smallest sign of defense, a single word. But she only sighed with impatience and said, "Just go home, Marco. Someone like you doesn't belong here." Those words shattered whatever was left inside me. All hope crumbled. My chest tightened as if crushed in a vice. Tears welled up, but I held them back. I refused to let them see me weak. I turned and walked away, each step dragging the full weight of my humiliation out of that house. Behind me, the laughter and chatter resumed almost instantly, as if my departure was nothing more than a brief pause. The cold wind whipped my face in the courtyard, but it was nothing compared to the pain in my heart. In that moment of utter shame, one bitter truth sank in. Tonight, I didn't just lose Christmas. I lost the wife I loved, the family I'd fought to keep, and the last shred of respect I had for them. I got back in the car, hands shaking as I turned the key. The engine roared to life like the scream trapped inside my chest. The car shot out of that fancy neighborhood, streetlights streaking across the windshield, casting patchy shadows over my face. Orlando's night was freezing. Wind howled through the cracked window, carrying the smell of coming rain. I had no idea where I was going. I only knew I had to get as far away from that place as possible. My heart was still pounding, adrenaline from the confrontation still boiling in my veins. As the car rolled onto the empty highway, old memories suddenly flooded back like a tidal wave, reminding me that tonight's humiliation wasn't the first, it was just the breaking point after years of being looked down on and trampled. They hit so hard I had to pull over to the shoulder for a moment just to breathe, knuckles white around the steering wheel. My wife's family had always lived in their own world, one where pride and status reigned supreme. My father-in-law, a rigid self-made man, saw himself as a triumphant businessman. Tall, silver-haired, always impeccably groomed, forever in expensive suits, voice booming like he was addressing a boardroom. He loved bragging about trips to Europe, shopping in Milan or Paris, as if those stories proved his superiority. But behind the polished facade was a blinding arrogance. He despised anyone who didn't meet his standards, and I, a gas station worker, had always been an easy target. My mother-in-law, Colette Lang, was colder and more venomous. Slim, dyed blonde hair, dripping in glittering jewelry, constantly boasting about her family's class. She loved talking about high society parties, rich friends, and how she raised her children to succeed. To her, I was nothing but a stain, someone unworthy of even stepping into their world. Then there was Sonny Lang, Marisol's 25-year-old brother, a spoiled playboy glued to his phone, living his fake life on social media. He posted photos of luxury cars and wild parties, openly mocking losers like me, his blue-collar brother-in-law who had nothing flashy to show off. The memories of them hurt like hell. I still remember that first visit to their house vividly. It was a nightmare I'll never forget. I wore the nicest clothes I owned, still cheap stuff from a regular store. The moment I walked into the villa, Emmett and Colette sat in the living room, their eyes scanning me from head to toe, lingering on my worn-out shoes. I saw the disappointment written all over their faces, the silent verdict that a gas station job made me unworthy of their family. "Sit down, young man," Emmett said flatly, not a hint of a smile. Throughout that dinner, every question was an interrogation about income, future plans, social standing. "How much do you make a month?" Colette asked, staring at me like a prosecutor. "What's your long-term plan? Work at a gas station forever?" Emmett chimed in, voice dripping with sarcasm. I answered as best I could, talking about saving up to open a small shop one day, but they just nodded politely, then changed the subject to brag about their boutiques and celebrity clients. The more I thought, the stronger the memories came, forcing me to wipe tears with my sleeve while stopped at a red light. Things got even worse right before the wedding. They forced me to sign a prenup to protect the Lang family assets. I sat in the lawyer's office reading the cold, clinical clauses. If we divorced, I would get nothing that belonged to them. I knew it was an insult, as if they believed I was marrying Marisol for money. But I signed anyway so she wouldn't be torn between us. "I'm so sorry, babe. My parents are just old-fashioned," Marisol whispered, eyes red. I hugged her and said it was fine, but deep down the wound had already opened. I swallowed my pride for love, believing time would change things. On our wedding day, the pain multiplied. My parents, simple farmers from rural Florida, traveled a long way, bursting with pride, wearing their best old clothes and bringing handmade wedding gifts. I was excited to introduce them to the Langs, hoping the two families would finally connect. Instead, my parents were treated with icy disdain. They were seated in a dark corner of the reception hall. No one greeted them or spoke to them. I saw my mother sitting alone, forcing a smile, while Emmett and Colette fussed over VIP guests. Worse, I overheard whispers from Marisol's relatives. "They look so country, total poor people. Why did Marisol marry that guy?" My heart broke, but I swallowed the tears and focused on Marisol's smile as we exchanged rings. On our wedding night, I held her and whispered, "I'll work hard so they'll accept me one day." Now, driving through the dark, I realized it had all been a delusion. Years of living under their contempt had worn me down. Tonight was simply the drop that made the cup overflow. Undeniable proof that to them I had never been good enough, rich enough, or worthy enough of respect. The car sped on through the night, streetlights blurring past, and amid the pain I felt a strange sense of release. Maybe this was the moment I finally stopped trying. Maybe it was time to let go and find myself again. Amid the vast emptiness of Christmas night and the lingering humiliation that still clung to me, I suddenly thought of the only person who had never turned her back on me. Ariana Rivera, my mother, 62 years old. She was a hard-working, gentle yet incredibly strong woman, the one true anchor I had known from childhood to adulthood. My parents raised me through tough times. My father worked as a laborer on construction sites. My mother took in sewing at home, and together they weathered every hardship. Even after Dad died 2 years ago from a sudden heart attack, Mom never broke. She stayed strong and remained my emotional rock. She never complained, always smiled even on the hardest days. I remembered those evenings when the three of us gathered around the kitchen table, Dad telling stories from work, Mom stroking my hair and saying, "Son, life will have its rough patches, but we'll always have each other." Now, in the middle of this storm, she was the only lighthouse guiding me back to shore. I couldn't stay another minute in that cold apartment with Marisol, a place now filled only with memories of betrayal. I needed her. I needed that quiet, unconditional comfort. I pulled out my phone, hands still trembling from the anger that hadn't subsided. The screen lit up, almost midnight, but I knew she'd still be awake, especially on Christmas Eve. I dialed. The ringtone echoed inside the car like a lifeline. She picked up on the second ring, her familiar warm voice filling the silence. "Marco? Son, it's late. What's wrong?" I tried to sound normal, even cheerful. "Mom, I want to spend Christmas with you. I'm on my way right now." But she heard the heaviness in every breath. She always could, like she had a sixth sense just for her son. She was quiet for a second, then said softly, "The door is always open, my boy. I've been waiting for you. Drive safe, okay?" No questions, no probing, just pure, unconditional acceptance. It warmed my heart a little against the biting cold of the night. The car sped toward the quiet suburb where Mom's small, weathered house sat tucked away. The familiar road lined with ancient oaks, dim yellow streetlights, and the smell of damp earth after a light rain. I remembered every visit, bringing her a box of the cookies she loved or a new scarf, and she would hug me tight as if I were still that little boy. Tonight I came empty-handed, carrying only pain and exhaustion. When I pulled up to the gate, she was already standing on the porch, wrapped in a thick wool shawl, hands trembling slightly from the cold. But her face broke into a smile the moment she saw me. The porch light illuminated her lined face and eyes full of love. I stepped out of the car and she rushed forward, pulling me into a fierce hug that seemed to erase every ounce of the humiliation I carried. Her familiar scent, soap and lavender, filled my nose and tears threatened to spill. "Oh, my boy, my little boy is home," she whispered. That simple sentence was enough to thaw the ice that had frozen my chest all day. No questions about Marisol, no judgment about her family. She knew I needed time, needed space to breathe. We walked inside the little house with its faded white walls and simple, spotless furniture. The kitchen was warm, faintly fragrant with roasted chicken. On the table sat the modest Christmas dinner she had prepared hours ago. Golden roasted chicken, toasted bread, and 2 steaming mugs of hot cocoa. No glittering lights, no endless banquet table like at the Langes. But here there was real warmth, the kind I had never felt at any lavish party. We sat down. A tiny candle flickered on the miniature Christmas tree she had made from dried branches. I started eating, but every bite stuck in my throat. Mom watched me, her eyes full of sorrow, and gently asked, "Do you want to talk?" That was when everything poured out like a dam breaking. I told her everything that had happened tonight, the ingratitude of my wife's family, how they treated me like an outsider at their Christmas celebration. I told her about Sonny's live stream, Marisol laughing without me, the painful confrontation at the villa. "They called me a lowly gas station clerk, Mom. And Marisol, she didn't say a single word in my defense." My voice cracked, tears rolling down as I recounted how I had given them the entire $900,000 from Dad's life insurance to save their boutique, and received no gratitude in return. I did it for Marisol because I couldn't bear to see her hurt. But now I'm just nothing to them. Ariana listened without interrupting, her face etched with pain, eyes glistening as if she were holding back my hurt for me. She held my hand tightly, her thin, warm fingers feeling every tremor of exhaustion and heartbreak. When I finished, she squeezed harder and whispered, "My son, it breaks my heart to see you like this. But you did the right thing. You lived with your heart, and that's what your father was always proud of." She paused, took a deep breath as if weighing her next words. When I had calmed a little and wiped my tears with the back of my hand, she said softly, "You never knew the full truth about your father. Esteban Rivera, the man who lived so simply and saved every penny, he wasn't just a construction worker like you thought." My heart beat faster, a mix of anticipation and curiosity. She spoke slowly, her voice warm like an old bedtime story. "Your father quietly built an enormous fortune in silence. He never bragged, never let your wife's family know. He invested in stocks, small real estate deals, saved every dollar from his hard labor. He did it because he didn't want money to shape you too early. Didn't want you to think life was only about wealth." I sat frozen, unable to believe my ears. My father, the man I thought was just a poor laborer who drove an old truck and ate simple meals, had kept such a secret. I remembered him sitting at the kitchen table, scribbling in that worn notebook. I thought he was just balancing the monthly budget. Turns out he was quietly building an empire. Mom continued, her voice trembling with emotion. 3 years ago, when he felt his health declining, your father transferred everything, about $65 million, into a trust. You'll receive it when you turn 35, which is only 8 months away, Marco. That was his final gift. Not for you to waste, but so you could live the life you truly want, freely." My jaw dropped. $65 million. Where had it come from? I pictured Dad, calloused hands, gentle smile, working and investing wisely without ever boasting. Tears fell without me noticing, not for the money, but for the silent love, the sacrifice, the lifelong protection my parents had given me. He knew the Langs looked down on us, so he kept it hidden, waiting for the day I could stand tall without ever having to bow. I hugged Mom so tightly my tears soaked her shoulder. "Mom, I had no idea. Why didn't he tell me?" She rubbed my back and whispered, "He wanted you to grow up on your own without leaning on wealth. And now I think you're ready." I held her closer, feeling the warmth from her frail body. In my heart, I whispered to Dad, "Thank you, not just for the money, but for the faith, for the path that lets me rise from tonight's shame." I promised myself I would use that money honorably, never to disappoint him. Perhaps to build the business I'd always dreamed of. To help people like us, people society looks down on. We talked through the entire Christmas night, a Christmas without glamour or twinkling lights, but filled with warmth, sincerity, and love. Something I had never truly felt at any grand celebration. That night I fell asleep on the sofa, dreaming of a new life, no longer weighed down by old pain, only hope and strength born from real family love. The next morning, weak Christmas sunlight filtered through the old curtains, bringing a rare touch of warmth to the Florida winter. I woke up feeling strange, exhausted, yet somehow lighter, as if the weight from last night had eased a little. Mom had been up for hours. She'd brewed strong black coffee and toasted a few slices of bread with her homemade strawberry jam. We sat at the kitchen table eating breakfast in comfortable silence, occasionally exchanging a few words about the weather or small memories. She didn't press me to talk more about last night. She just stroked my hand and said, "Take care of yourself, son. I'm always here if you need me." That simple sentence was enough to make me smile. The first real smile I'd managed in what felt like forever. I hugged her tight for a long time before getting back in the car, promising to visit more often. As I drove away from the familiar neighborhood, emotions surged through me. Gratitude for her, hope because of Dad's secret, but still a flicker of dread about what waited at home. I drove slowly, breathing deeply, trying to stay calmer than I had been the night before. The road back to Orlando felt shorter, lined with green trees and an old Christmas song playing softly on the radio. When I got home, the sun was high, spilling pale gold light across the living room floor through the windows. I pushed the door open, clinging to a faint hope that Marisol might ask where I'd been, or at least apologize for last night. But no. She was sitting on the couch, phone pressed to her ear, laughing brightly with whoever was on the other end. Her voice was sweet and full of life, the voice I once fell madly in love with. When she saw me, she only glanced over, eyes cold as if I were a stranger, then went right back to her conversation without a greeting. Not one question about where I'd spent the night, not a hint of remorse. She stood up, walked into the bedroom and slammed the door behind her, the sound ringing out like a declaration. She had done nothing wrong, it was all my fault. I stood there in the empty living room, feeling slapped all over again. My chest tightened, but I forced myself to stay calm. In the days that followed, our life became a heavy, suffocating silence, like two strangers sharing the same roof. I kept the trust fund a complete secret. I didn't want Marisol or anyone else to know. It was mine alone, Dad's final gift, and I would guard it until I was ready. I kept going to work at the gas station, standing behind the counter, breathing in oil fumes, forcing smiles at customers, trying to keep my routine steady so I wouldn't collapse. Every morning I woke early, made my own coffee, and left without a word. Evenings I sat alone in the living room, staring blankly at the TV or reading, doing anything to avoid her. Marisol seemed to want the same distance. She slept in, scrolled on her phone, and left the house without saying goodbye. Gone were the evenings we once spent eating together, laughing about our days. Now there was only emptiness, an ever-widening void between us. A couple of weeks after Christmas, I started noticing changes in her. She dressed more provocatively, tight outfits, short skirts, flawless makeup every time she went out. Glossy curls, bright red lips, strong perfume that filled the whole house. She began leaving earlier and coming home later, claiming busy work at the makeup studio or meetings with friends. "I have a client appointment. I'll be late tonight," she'd toss out casually when I asked, eyes avoiding mine. I tried not to overthink it, telling myself she was just trying to move past Christmas night. But deep down, unease started creeping in. Why the sudden change? Why did her eyes look dreamy when she came home, as if she were thinking of someone else? I began paying closer attention, memorizing her schedule, but still tried to stay calm, not wanting to make things worse. Then one day, while cleaning the house, something I did now just to kill time, I accidentally found a receipt that had fallen out of her purse as I tidied up. It was from an upscale restaurant in downtown Orlando. Dinner for two, lobster appetizer, expensive red wine, chocolate dessert. My heart started pounding. A vague suspicion rose inside me. I held the paper, hands trembling slightly, and decided to ask her directly when she got home. That evening, Marisol walked in looking artificially tired, kicked off her shoes, and flopped onto the couch. I held out the receipt and asked calmly, "Who did you have dinner with? This is for 2 people. She glanced at it, then forced a laugh. "Oh, just a co-worker. Work stuff. Don't make a big deal out of it." But her face, the way her eyes darted away, the stiff smile, made me more uneasy than ever. That wasn't the truth. I could feel it. Doubt began gnawing at me like a worm, slowly growing inside. I tried to push it away, telling myself I was being paranoid, but the unease only grew, distracting me at work. Every night I looked at her and wondered, what is she hiding? Could it really be? No. I didn't want to think the worst, but the memory of Christmas night, how coldly she told me to leave, made everything feel suspicious. Then one afternoon at the gas station, while I was behind the counter checking invoices, a luxury car suddenly pulled up. A gleaming black Mercedes Maybach S650. The kind that never shows up at a small station like mine. I didn't pay much attention at first, assuming it was just a customer. But from the office, through the glass, I saw Marisol step out of the passenger seat. My heart stopped. She was beaming, hair fluttering in the wind, standing next to a young man dressed expensively. Slim-fit suit, flashy watch, the confident swagger of someone born rich. They chatted happily, his hand lightly resting on her lower back as they walked. I froze, blood rushing to my face. Who was he? Why was Marisol here with him? I stepped out from behind the counter and approached, trying to keep my voice steady despite my racing heart. Marisol? What are you doing here? She flinched when she saw me, face paling for a second, but quickly regained her usual cold expression. Oh, hi. I was just meeting a friend. He was giving me a ride home. The young man looked at me with a faint, superior smile. Hey man, I'm a friend of Marisol's. Just dropping her off on my way. Marisol cut in quickly, tone dismissive. Yeah, just friends. I've got to go. But the way they looked at each other, stolen glances, intimate gestures, told a completely different story. They weren't just friends. There was something deeper, something far more intimate. As they got back in the car and drove off, leaving behind that smug smile and the scent of luxury exhaust, I stood rooted to the spot. My chest ached, but I still didn't have the courage to face the truth. Was she cheating? The thought made me tremble, but I pushed it away, telling myself it might still be a misunderstanding. Then one evening, while Marisol was in the shower, water running loudly from the bathroom, her phone buzzed on the dining table. I never checked her phone, I never had. But the notification that lit up the lock screen stopped me cold. Baby, same hotel tonight? I'm going crazy missing you. Just want to hold you right now. A flirty message with a heart emoji from an unknown number. My heart felt crushed in a vice. Blood rushed to my head. One single text erased the last fragile shred of hope I had been clinging to. All the pieces suddenly fit. The late nights, the dinner for two, the man at the gas station. I hadn't been paranoid. It was the brutal truth. Marisol was having an affair. Tears welled up, but I held them back and waited for her to come out. When she stepped out of the bathroom wrapped in a towel, hair dripping, I held up the phone and said with eerie calm, "Explain this." She looked at the screen, face turning ashen, but instead of explaining, she immediately went on the attack, voice rising. "You went through my phone? Are you controlling me now? You're being completely irrational." The pain was unbearable, but I didn't scream. Every word came out laced with the desperation of a man betrayed. I saw everything. The guy at the gas station, the restaurant receipt, coming home late. "You're cheating on me, aren't you?" Marisol grew crueler with every word, her voice sharp and angry. "Yes, I am. So what? I deserve someone better than a broke gas station loser like you. You've never given me anything but boredom." Her words stabbed like knives. I staggered. I choked back sobs, voice shaking. You really think I'm that pathetic because I'm not rich?" She turned back, eyes so cold they made me shiver. "What do you want me to say? You're poor. That's a fact. You've never brought anything to my life." I took one step closer, almost pleading. "I gave your family every cent of my father's life insurance. The last thing he left me. You know that." She smirked, a cruel twist of her lips. "And I'm supposed to be grateful? Get over yourself. That money was gone in a year. You think you're some hero? You only did what you were supposed to do?" My chest tightened so hard I could barely breathe. "I did it because I loved you, Marisol. Because I wanted to help your family." She cut me off, voice ice cold. "And I stopped loving you. You're not part of my future anymore." The fight dragged on, shouts echoing through the small house. Tears streamed down my face without me noticing. She grabbed her bag, threw on clothes, and stormed out the door without looking back. The door slammed behind her like thunder, leaving me standing alone in a house that suddenly felt huge and utterly silent. Silent enough that I could hear my own heart shatter into pieces. The next afternoon when I got home from work, the pale Orlando sunset spilled through the windows, but the house still felt as cold as ever. I pushed the door open, clinging to a faint hope that Marisol would be there, that she might say something, anything, to mend things. But she was sitting in the living room, legs crossed, a single white sheet of paper placed neatly on the coffee table. Her eyes were ice cold, not a trace of remorse. Without apology or explanation, she announced flatly, "This is the divorce paper. I've already signed it. Sign it." Her words hit me like lightning, leaving me stunned and rooted to the spot in the middle of the room. The document lay there bearing her careless signature like a death sentence for our marriage. My heart pounded, blood rushing to my head. "Why are you doing this? Why are you treating me like this?" I demanded, voice shaking as I tried to step closer. Marisol looked at me with pure contempt. "I'm done. I want out of this marriage. I can't keep living with a husband who has no future." Her words cut like knives. No future? After everything I had sacrificed, after the money I gave to save her family? I tried to hold on, voice breaking. "Marisol, we can talk. I know you're angry, but divorce? We've been together 5 years." But she just shook her head, slipped the wedding ring off her finger, the ring I had bought with my very first savings, and tossed it onto the table with a decisive flick of her wrist, as if erasing every trace of those 5 years. The ring clinked and rolled across the wooden surface, the sound echoing in the silent room and freezing me in place. She stood up, grabbed her bag, and walked out the door without a goodbye. The door closed softly behind her, but to me it sounded like an explosion. I sat for hours in the silent house, staring at the divorce papers on the table, feeling everything collapse right in front of me while I was powerless to stop it. Tears rolled down my cheeks, but I didn't sob out loud. Just a deep, silent pain. For 5 years I had tried to be a good husband, and now it was all shattered in an instant. I thought of my mother and her words. "You deserve better than this." Yes, maybe it was finally time to let go. In my desperation, I decided to go to my in-laws, the very people I had once sacrificed everything to save their business. One last flicker of hope. Maybe they would talk sense into Marisol, or at least give me an explanation so I could understand why it had ended like this. I drove to the familiar villa. The road now felt longer than ever. My heart raced, a mix of anxiety and fear. Would they even listen? Or would they humiliate me again like on Christmas night? As I pushed open the gate, the scent of roses from the garden drifted in the air, but the atmosphere inside made my skin crawl. Laughter and conversation spilled out from the living room. I stepped inside, and the sight stabbed me like a knife. Marisol was sitting with that young man from the gas station, the one with the smug smile and expensive suit, chatting happily with my in-laws. They sat around the coffee table, wine glasses sparkling, looking like one big happy family. Marisol was radiant, her hand resting lightly on his while Mr. Emmett nodded approvingly and Mrs. Collette giggled. I stood frozen in the doorway, my chest constricting. The scene was a punch in the face, not just betrayal, but flaunted openly right under their roof. Still, I stepped forward, clinging to one last shred of hope. "Marisol." "Sir, ma'am, I came to talk." My voice trembled as I tried to stay calm. But their reaction was nothing but obvious irritation. Mr. Emmett looked up, eyes narrowing. "What are you doing here, Marco? Come begging again?" His words were like a bucket of cold water poured over me. I turned to Marisol, pleading, "Marisol, I just want to know why you're divorcing me so suddenly. Can we talk privately?" But Mrs. Collette immediately cut in, voice sharp. "Marisol doesn't owe you any explanation. My daughter deserves someone successful, not an ordinary husband like you." Her contempt was palpable, and the others, including the young man, snickered. Before I could respond, swallowing my tears, Mr. Emmett delivered another devastating blow, his voice booming like a command. "You should start packing and get out of the house you're living in. That house is in our name. It was our wedding gift, and now that you're divorcing, we want it back. Don't make this more complicated than it needs to be." I stood there stunned, unable to believe my ears. The people I had saved with my late father's entire $900,000 life insurance to keep their boutique from bankruptcy were now treating me like a freeloader. My heart ached as if squeezed in a vice. "Sir, I helped your family." "How can you say that?" I whispered, voice breaking. He just smirked. "That was your duty. Don't act like you're some great savior." Emboldened by her parents' support, Marisol lifted her chin, eyes ice cold. "Get out of my life right now, Marco. Never come looking for me again. I've chosen my path." Her words destroyed whatever was left. There was nothing more to hold on to. I turned and walked out of the villa, each step heavy. Tears streamed down my face, but strangely, amid the pain, I felt a new kind of freedom after years of being oppressed by her family. No more bowing my head, no more trying to prove my worth. I drove back to the house, once our home, and packed my things into an old suitcase. Simple belongings, clothes, books, a few photos of my parents. I looked around the rooms one last time, heart aching yet somehow relieved. When the door closed behind me, I knew it was the end, and also a new beginning. The car sped through the night, Orlando's streetlights streaking across the windshield in blurred, pale streaks like fading memories. I didn't look back. I drove straight to Mom's house, the only place left that still held real warmth. My heart still ached from Marisol's words, from the image of her sitting beside that young man. But now the pain was mixed with a strange, unfamiliar sense of relief. For years I had lived inside a glass cage, trying to fit into a world that was never mine, sacrificing everything just for a scrap of respect. Now that every tie had been severed, I felt like the little boy I once was, free, unburdened, weightless. On the way I called Mom, my voice hoarse. "Mom, can I come stay with you for a while?" She was quiet for a second, then answered softly, "Come home, son. I'm waiting." No questions, no explanations needed. That's how she always was. She understood her son without words. When the car stopped at her gate, it was very late. The night wind whistled through the trees, carrying Florida's biting chill. She was standing on the porch, wrapped in her wool shawl, the dim yellow light spilling from the window. I stepped out, dropped the heavy suitcase, and opened my arms. She hugged me tight, as if she could erase every ounce of exhaustion. "Come inside, Marco," she whispered, stroking my back. She could tell I had just been through something huge, the tremor in my voice, my red eyes. But she also saw the lightness in me, the carefree spark I had as a child running wild in the yard. "You look freer," she said with a sad smile. We sat in the kitchen. She made hot tea while I briefly told her about the divorce papers, about how Marisol and her family had thrown me out like trash. She listened, holding my hand tightly, never judging, and simply said, "You sacrificed far too much for that family. Now it's time to live for yourself." That night I slept in my old room, falling into the deepest sleep I'd had in days, wrapped in a safety I had long forgotten. The following days passed in quiet peace, like a calm river after a storm. I stayed with Mom, not rushing back to work, just taking time to heal. In the mornings I swept the house, cleaned corners she couldn't reach anymore, and brought fresh life to the old place. I fixed the leaky back porch roof that had been dripping for years, hammering nails, repainting rotted wood, sweating under the sun but feeling lighter with every swing. Mom watched and smiled. "My boy is so handy, just like your father." We cooked together. Simple dishes like chicken vegetable stew or toasted sandwiches. I chopped onions, she seasoned everything, and we talked about little memories. We went grocery shopping together. I pushed the cart while she picked out fresh fruit and told me neighborhood gossip. I laughed like a kid again. These ordinary moments brought back the warmth of family I had lost for so many years. Warmth that needed no display, no proof, just honest presence. Every evening we sat on the porch watching the stars. She asked about work. I talked about vague future plans. The pain of Marisol was still there, but it faded day by day, replaced by peace. I thought about the trust fund. Only a few months left, and promised myself I would use it to build the life I truly wanted. Time flew, and then my 35th birthday arrived, a day I once thought would be just like any other. Early that morning, Mom baked a small cake and sang "Happy Birthday" in a trembling voice that brought tears to my eyes. We ate breakfast together. She gave me a scarf she had knitted herself, and I held her tight. Then my phone rang, an unknown number from a bank. I answered, and a polite voice said, "Mr. Marco Rivera, we're calling from the bank per Mr. Esteban Rivera's instructions. You need to come to the office to finalize some paperwork." My heart raced. The trust fund. Mom had told me, but I hadn't expected it so soon. I looked at her. She smiled and nodded. "Go, son. Your father is waiting for you." I drove to the bank, mind spinning. Was this really happening? Or just routine paperwork? Cold sweat broke out. My hands gripped the wheel as if it were my first date all over again. At the bank, a sleek modern building in downtown Orlando, I was led into a private office. They verified my identity with thick files and clicking keyboards. After everything was done, the manager looked at me, smiled, and said, "The trust established by your father has matured today. The total value is $65 million. I froze. My hands shook as I signed the papers. Shock, gratitude, disbelief, regret, pride. Every emotion hit at once until I could barely breathe. $65 million? The number made my head spin like I was dreaming. My father, the hard-working, simple man, had left me this legacy. I collapsed into the chair, tears threatening, thinking of all his quiet sacrifices. Before I left, the manager handed me an old, sealed envelope with my father's handwriting on the back, sealed for 20 years. This was part of his instructions, he said. I took it with trembling hands, as if holding a treasure from the past. That evening, I sat by the fireplace with Mom. The flames danced, casting warm light on the letter I held like a late birthday gift from the grave. Outside, the wind howled against the windows, but inside it was cozy and safe. Mom sat beside me, eyes shining. "Open it, son. Your father wanted you to read this." I tore the seal. Dad's familiar handwriting appeared, slightly faded ink, but the words still sharp and clear. In the letter, he wrote everything he always wanted me to understand. That life can be hard, that good people are sometimes trampled, that I should never let anyone measure my worth by money or background. He told me about his own life, the years of hard labor, being taken advantage of, yet never losing his kindness. "Son, I set up this trust so you can choose the life you want, so you never have to bow to those who look down on you, and so you'll never be used the way I once was." He urged me to stay kind but never weak, to give generously but always protect my dignity, and to use the money to build the life I truly desired, not the one others forced on me. When I reached the last line, "I'm proud of you, Marco. Live well." I couldn't hold back the tears, not because of the $65 million, but because of the love, the protection, and the pride my father had carried for me even after he was gone. Tears streamed down my face. I pressed the letter to my chest and whispered, "Thank you, Dad. My beloved father." Mom hugged me, her own tears falling. "He's always with you. Right here," she said, touching my heart. In that moment, I silently promised him I would honor every word, live a life he could be proud of, and never again let my kindness be exploited. A few weeks later, with the money from the trust, I bought a spacious, comfortable house in a quiet Orlando suburb. 2 stories with a big garden where Mom could finally plant the roses and vegetables she'd always dreamed of. We moved in. I renovated every corner. Fresh white paint, a brand new kitchen. Mom beamed at the garden. Just like the old house. I started a small logistics company, the dream I had shelved for years because of my marriage. Beginning in the garage with a few old trucks, I worked tirelessly, learned from mistakes, treated employees and clients with the kindness my father taught me. The business grew steadily, from a handful of contracts to a wide network built on persistence and honesty. Every morning I woke early, checked shipments, called partners, and finally felt that my life truly belonged to me. I now live a peaceful, happy life with Mom. I started over, free from the old pain, filled only with the strength and serenity I deserve. Mornings we drink coffee on the porch. She tells stories about Dad and I laugh like a child again. Evenings I read by the fireplace, thinking of Dad and his words. Marisol and the past are now just faint shadows. I don't hate her. I only regret the years I lost. With the $65 million, I invest wisely, help the community, and set up scholarships for poor kids like I once was. My life is now proof. From humiliation, I rose stronger than ever. And I know somewhere far away, Dad is smiling. The first few months of this new life passed like a gentle, peaceful dream, though not without their surprises. I poured my energy into building my small logistics company, starting from the garage with a handful of beat-up old trucks and a carefully chosen team of just a few employees. Every day I woke before dawn, checked the cargo, called partners, and came home to Mom in the late afternoon. She loved sitting by the stove, cooking simple things like vegetable soup or toasted bread, and we talked about everything, the weather, old memories, anything at all. I felt reborn. The weight of that failed marriage was gone. The contemptuous looks from my ex-wife's family no longer existed. In their place was true peace. Birds singing in the garden, the scent of the flowers Mom planted, and her smile when she saw her son happy. I invested a portion of the money in safe stocks, just as Dad had advised in his letter. Nothing risky, only steady growth to secure the future. Yet amid those calm days, news about my ex-wife's family began trickling in, not because I sought it out, but through old friends' gossip or articles I stumbled across online. While I was building my new life with Mom, their boutique chain plunged into a deep crisis. Revenue collapsed like a dam bursting. Customers returned items non-stop, complaining about poor quality, counterfeit goods, and unprofessional service. Competing stores sprang up all over Orlando and nearby cities. Better prices, more modern designs, forcing the Langs to slash prices just to keep anyone coming through the doors. Things got worse by the day. Marisol's lover, that flashy young man I once saw at the gas station, abandoned her the moment he realized her family was sinking. I heard from a mutual acquaintance. He vanished as soon as bankruptcy loomed, leaving Marisol alone with her loneliness and regret. The family was sued by suppliers over new debts piled up from overpriced inventory they couldn't sell. Bank accounts were frozen, stores closed temporarily, and Marisol panicked as everything crumbled at once. She called old friends begging for help, but everyone turned away. Those who once flattered them now ignored them. I could picture her sitting alone in some cheap rented apartment, hands shaking as she clutched the phone, eyes red from crying. I had once felt that same pain, but now I felt nothing, only the cold indifference that time brings. Online outrage exploded too. Old stories resurfaced about how badly they had treated their son-in-law, me, and their reputation was destroyed. Posts spread like wildfire. The famous Orlando boutique family kicked their son-in-law out of Christmas dinner after he saved them from bankruptcy. They called him a poor loser. Look who's bankrupt now. I happened to see those comments while scrolling one day, and a complicated feeling rose inside me, not joy, but a bitter confirmation that justice sometimes arrives late. Sonny, the brother who once lived for likes, frantically deleted his old posts under a storm of criticism. Mr. Emmett and Mrs. Collette tried to defend themselves in local newspapers, but it only made things worse. People called them arrogant and greedy. I stayed out of it, watching quietly from a distance, reminding myself, this is the consequence of their actions, not mine. Deep down, though, I felt a faint pity. Pity for people who once had everything and lost it all because of who they were. Then one rainy afternoon, about 6 months after the divorce, while I was reading on the porch, the doorbell rang. Mom opened it and sounded surprised. "Marisol, what are you doing here?" My heart thudded, a mix of nerves and unease surging through me. I stepped outside and saw her standing there. Haggard, hair messy, clothes shabby, eyes wild like someone drowning. Gone was the pride, the arrogance, only desperation remained. She forced a crooked, pleading smile. "Marco, can I come in and talk?" I looked at her, strangely calm. No anger, no pain, just emptiness. Mom glanced at me, nodded slightly, and went back inside to give us privacy. Marisol stepped in, sat on the sofa, clutching her purse as if letting go would make everything disappear. Her voice trembled. "Marco, I was wrong. I came to ask for another chance. That man, he tricked me. He left me when he found out my family was bankrupt. I just wanted to save them, and you're the only one who can help us get back on our feet." Her words were like an old, tired script full of tears and begging. She told me about the crisis, Stores shuttered. Her parents selling their cars, herself living in a cheap rental. I know I hurt you, but please, for old time's sake. I listened, and my heart stayed perfectly still. No resentment, no hurt, only the hollow calm of someone who had been betrayed to the very core. I looked at her and saw flashes of that cold Christmas night when I was humiliated in front of everyone, of her calling me worthless, of the wedding ring she threw on the table like trash. Those memories were crystal clear, and they made one brutal truth undeniable. If I were still the broke gas station clerk today, Marisol would never have shown up at my door. She was here because rumors of my wealth, the trust fund, had spread through friends or social media. I shook my head gently, voice steady. Marisol, go home. I can't help you anymore. When she saw I wouldn't budge, she fell to her knees, sobbing uncontrollably, grabbing my hands. Marco, I was wrong. I beg you, save me, save my family. I'll do anything, please don't abandon me. Her cries echoed through the living room. Mom looked out from the kitchen, worried. But I simply stepped back, politely asked her to leave. Stand up. I'm sorry, but you said you had already chosen your path. It ended there. I opened the door. Rain and wind rushed in. She stood, shoulders shaking, tears mixing with the rain. As I closed the door, Marisol finally understood she had lost the only person who had ever treated her with genuine kindness, not for money, but for real love. I watched through the glass as she shuffled back to her car. I felt no regret. That was the last time I ever saw her. Sometime later, word reached me that Mr. Emmett and Mrs. Collette had officially gone bankrupt. The grand villa was seized by the bank, their belongings auctioned off, and they moved into a small apartment on the outskirts. Everything they once bragged about, luxury cars, lavish parties, status, vanished because of their own greed and arrogance. They tried borrowing money, but no one would help. Public outrage still burned, and old partners turned away. Sonny had to take manual labor jobs. No more influencer life. Marisol, according to rumors, lived alone, scraping by with odd jobs. I stopped following the news. I only heard snippets from acquaintances. Meanwhile, in my warm new home with Mom, I knew I had finally escaped the darkness and found the life I deserved. Every morning, watching her tend the flowers in the garden, I smile and think, Dad, I did it. Life goes on, carrying lessons from the past, and I, Marco Rivera, am now a free, strong man whom no one can ever trample again. 2 years passed in the blink of an eye, yet to me they felt like a long, transformative journey. The small tech company I had started, an initially vague idea of combining logistics services with real-time cargo tracking technology, grew far beyond anything I had imagined. What began in my garage with a few old trucks and 3 employees expanded into a solid network, with a headquarters in downtown Orlando and branches in several neighboring cities. Revenue rose steadily from modest beginnings to millions of dollars per quarter, thanks to major contracts with e-commerce giants. The team grew to more than 50 people, individuals I carefully selected not just for their skills, but for their honesty and heart. I still remember the sleepless nights writing business plans, cold calling clients, and fixing software bugs with my own hands. Now I am regarded as a respected young entrepreneur, not only for business success, but for the way I treat people. Generous salaries, ongoing training, and always putting ethics first. A local newspaper once ran a profile, Marco Rivera, from gas station clerk to tech founder with a heart of gold. I smiled when I read it, but deep down I knew it was all because of my father's words in that letter. Be kind, but never weak. When the company reached a stable milestone, steady revenue, and a tight-knit team, I decided to create a charity in my father's name, the Esteban Rivera Foundation. It was my way of honoring the humble man who taught me the true value of giving. The foundation supports low-income workers and disadvantaged children, offering scholarships, vocational training, and basic health care. I poured a large portion of the trust fund into it, not for show, but because I had once been one of those kids, raised in poverty, watching my parents toil day after day. At a modest fundraising event for the foundation, a small gathering at a beachside hotel in Orlando with soft music and simple food, I met Lena. She was a child psychologist working at a center for at-risk youth, with long brown hair and a smile full of genuine warmth. Lena wasn't the flashy type. She wore a simple dress, spoke softly, and truly cared about everyone around her. We first spoke while I was sharing the story of the foundation. She approached me afterward. "Marco, your story is so inspiring. I can see you're not just building a company. You're building hope for so many people." Her words were sincere, not flattery, and they caught my attention. We talked all evening about children, about life, about the wounds that time slowly heals. Lena told me how she helps kids overcome trauma. I opened up about my journey from the pain of divorce to the peace I had finally found. Without pretense, she was drawn to my honesty and resilience, qualities Marisol had once ignored. Our love grew gently and quietly, without noise or pressure. Our first dates were walks in the park, coffee at small cafes, or cooking together at my place. Lena understood me in the little things. She listened when I spoke about my parents, comforted me when old memories resurfaced, and encouraged me when I hesitated about the future. "You're so strong, Marco. Never forget that," she would say, holding my hand tightly. My mother loved Lena from the very first meeting. She hugged her and smiled kindly. "My dear girl, you've brought sunshine into this house." From that day on, we were together like two puzzle pieces that fit perfectly. No rush, no drama, simply the right person at the right time. A year later, we married in a simple beachside ceremony. Just Mom, a few close friends, and the sound of waves. Lena wore a plain white dress. I held her under the golden afternoon sun and whispered, "You are my peace." Then joy doubled when we welcomed a beautiful baby girl, Thalia Rivera, with big round eyes like her mother and the gentle smile of my father. The day Thalia was born, I cried like a child, cradling her in my arms, feeling my life was complete. Watching her grow up surrounded by her mother's laughter and her grandmother's tender care, I finally understood what a real family felt like, something I had never truly had in my previous marriage. But life is not always smooth. 4 years later, my mother fell gravely ill, late-stage liver cancer. Her health declined rapidly. The news hit like a storm out of a clear sky. She grew visibly thinner, yet still smiled. "I'm fine, son. Don't worry about me." In her final months, Lena and I cared for her devotedly, taking her to checkups, enduring exhausting chemotherapy sessions, and making short trips to the beach she loved. I put work on hold and stayed by her side, cooking her favorite dishes, chicken stew, pudding, and making sure she lacked nothing. Lena helped her talk through her fears, easing her mind, while Thalia drew pictures for Grandma and sang childish lullabies. Mom grew weaker, but those days were filled with love. We laughed, told old stories, and she whispered, "Son, I'm so proud of you." She passed away 3 months later, peacefully in her sleep, surrounded by family. My heart broke, but I knew she left this world in peace. The funeral was simple yet dignified, held in the small church near our home. No extravagance, just fresh flowers from the garden she had planted and the hymns she loved. My family gathered close, Lena holding Thalia, me standing by the casket, tears streaming down. Neighbors, Mom's old friends, and my employees all came to pay their respects, sharing beautiful memories. "Ariana was the strongest woman I ever knew," one neighbor said. "She always helped others and never expected anything in return." I listened, my heart full of gratitude. She had lived a meaningful life, and now she was with Dad in heaven. After the service, we scattered her ashes into the sea as she had wished, and I whispered, "Thank you, Mom, for being my rock all these years." On golden afternoons, gazing at the photos of Mom and Dad on the wooden mantel by the fireplace, I knew I had fulfilled my duty as a son, not because of money, but out of love and gratitude for the two people who made me who I am. Sunlight streamed through the window, reflecting off the pictures. Dad with his gentle smile, Mom with her soft expression. I sat there for hours, reflecting on the years. From poverty to betrayal to success, everything happens for a reason. Pain taught me strength. Loss taught me to cherish. Holding my daughter's hand as Thalia babbled a song and wrapping my arm around my wife, I knew every hardship I endured had led me to this peaceful, deserving life. Lena rested her head on my shoulder. Are you okay? You've been lost in thought lately. I'm afraid you're sad again. I gently squeezed her hand and looked into the kind, warm eyes I knew I was so lucky to have. I'm really okay. Sometimes old memories come back, but they don't bring me down anymore. Lena touched my chest as if checking my words. As long as you know you're never alone, we're always here. I smiled, a light yet deep smile filled with gratitude and peace. I know, and I'm okay now, my love, because we have each other. My story ends here, but the lessons continue. The message I want to leave with everyone. Life is full of surprises, but never let pain define you. Be kind, but keep your self-respect. Never sacrifice everything for those who don't deserve it. The greatest lesson from this journey: true love comes from sincerity, not status or money. And my advice: when you are trampled, stand up, rediscover yourself, and build the life you dream of. Because in the end, happiness is not the destination. It's the people walking beside you on the journey. I, Marco Rivera, have learned that, and I hope you do too.